All set? It's 10 a.m. and it's October 25th, 2025, and this morning we're having a special meeting of the commissioners to listen to the residents and about the 2026 Madison master plan, of which there's a section for Eidelweiss, because Eidelweiss is a zone in the zoning ordinance of Madison. It's called the Eidelweiss Residential District, not to be confused with the Madison Village District, which is a district but not a municipality, as Eidelweiss is a village district municipality within the town of Madison. Got that? So in the zoning ordinances with the Eidelweiss Residential District, we're a part of the town of Madison. There's a state law that suggests, doesn't require, it's not a legal document when it's done, that each municipality, each town within the state of New Hampshire, of which there's like 270 something towns, does a master plan for the purpose of documenting the future and future vision for that municipality, that town, and for a path guidance on zoning regulations and modifications. So there is a piece of the Madison master plan that has Eidelweiss, and in the Eidelweiss, it's a 99-page document as of 2002, and it was modified in 2010 to catch up with state law changes that happened. So it's kind of overdue by about 15 years. And Tia Gagnon is here, and she's a volunteer on the Madison Planning Board as an alternate. And she's also volunteering to lead a steering committee, which is made up out of different representatives of the town and town departments in formulating the new version of the master plan, which hopes to be finalized next year. The three commissioners are Nancy Cole and Woody McNiven, and I'm Mark Raffam. I live on Appinville Way, Woody is on Eidelweiss Drive, and Nancy is on Burn. And we should probably go around and have people introduce themselves.
Sure.
Kathy Koziel.
My name is Kathy Koziel. Kathy Koziel, I live on 7 Lakeview Drive, and I was a commissioner in 2019, 2021.
John Napoli, I'm at 2 Lugano Road.
Carrie McNiven, 104 Eidelweiss.
And the rest of Madison TV. So I'm going to estimate the crowd size at between 10 and 15,000 people.
Yes, Mr. President.
So we did a hearing last fall, which we thought was successful, where we asked the audience to spend the first 10 minutes deciding how long they wanted the meeting to be and what the subjects were that they wanted to talk about. And we talked about briefly of doing that same kind of format here. So it's already 10:04, and I'd like to spend 5 minutes with this huge crowd hearing from you as to what the subjects are that you'd like to talk about today, because the master plan can cover a lot of different subjects, from transportation to energy to zoning ordinances to recreation to police and fire, which is in the town, but we use those services. So whatever the subjects are, we'd first like to hear from you what you came to the meeting thinking that you'd really like to hear discussed. So we can start with you, Kathy. Is what are the subjects you'd like to hear?
Two things. One, I think, does relate to the master plan. Myself and maybe 10 or 12 other residents, primarily in Eidelweiss, but in other areas of Madison, have been very concerned about the impact of short-term rentals on our residential neighborhoods. And I did scan through the attached master plan when it was sent through the Eidelweiss Constant Contact, and didn't specifically see anything in there, but that's something that's of concern to us. And the fact that Eidelweiss states very specifically that it's a residential community, no business or commercial activity, no agricultural activity. Our lots are small, our roads are very subject to heavy traffic and, you know, all the other problems that we could go on and on about short-term rentals, but that's something that's of a major concern to me. The other thing is, which is really not related to the master plan, but also maybe a short discussion on the tower that's going up on that piece of property that abuts, I don't know if it's actually Oak Ridge or Presidential, but up at the top of the hill there. And a couple of years ago, there was some concern about the folks that purchased the property off Eben Farm Road and wanting to use Eidelweiss to access that property. And I know we put something in one of the ordinances, and I'm not sure if it had to do with the water or driveway permits or something like that, but some way to kind of keep that separation between the Eidelweiss property and the non-Eidelweiss property, so we didn't become an additional access point to someone else's private property and or development. So those two things specifically.
That was 3 things.
2 things.
STR tower and non-abutting, non-Eidelweiss abutting properties.
Yes. Yeah, I guess it would be 2 separate things. I'm not concerned about the tower so much as I am about it opening up access to property that was previously landlocked.
Joe,
John,
John,
that's okay.
I'll learn.
This is my first town meeting, I just came by to listen to see what the issues were going to be. Typically my wife shows up, but I'm here today, she's not around.
Okay.
So I'm, you know, just listening to see what was happening in the town.
After we get everybody's subjects down, then we decide the order that we agree on and how much time we're gonna give this meeting, so you'll get to participate anyway. Yes, Kerry McNiven lives on Eidelweiss Drive also. Do you have subjects that you'd like to hear
Yes, I do.
discussed?
Mine probably all fit under recreation and recreational infrastructure. And the pond fits under recreation. Like
Okay.
the health of the pond.
So, it's now 7 past, so we only used 3 minutes to do that, which is good. So how long would you like this meeting to go, to discuss these? And then next we'll prioritize them.
No later than 11.
So we should adjourn at 11, and that would be giving us about 50 minutes so far. Anybody else have a time idea? You okay with 11
No.
o'clock, Joe? And Carrie, yeah?
Well, last time we did this format, everybody said, yeah, 60 minutes would be good. It ended up being about 90 minutes, just so you know.
Once they were into it, they didn't want the 15 minutes of discussing the format to count against their discussion time. So they bought a vowel. All right, so, the order of things then, how many people would like to see STRs as the most important thing we talk about? The tower, cell tower. There's one for the cell tower. Abutting non-Eidelweiss properties, that's one.
Yep.
Eden carries on that too. Recreation,
Oh,
that's,
The ponds.
that's gonna win so far then.
Uh-huh.
That makes sense.
Okay.
And the final subject is the ponds. Does that mean beaches, or the water quality of that ponds are a big
You
subject?
know, it all kind of wraps
Yeah.
in together.
Okay, so, we have the
And it's part
recreation,
of recreation.
so if it was between ponds and recreation, which one would you start with, Kathy?
The ponds.
Joe?
ponds.
So let's start with the ponds at 9 past 10.
And we can talk about the master plan too. 'Cause none of our topics really fit into the overall master plan that Madison is updating, I don't think.
Actually, within ours is like a master plan for Eidelweiss in the Madison master plan. And the way it was done in 2002 was to say that there's a, I don't wanna do a lot of talking here when but I'm just gonna address what you're saying is, the district had its own master plan. And I'm trying to remember back to 2002, which I don't have a clear vision of exactly what we did every day back in 2002. I was the chairman of the Madison Planning Board at the time the master plan was written in 2002. and it refers to a separate master plan that the village wrote for itself. By the look on Nancy's face, Nancy was the administrator for 15 years, and if she doesn't remember it being in the office, you don't remember it being in the office. I haven't seen it since it was done in 2022. I can't tell you anything about it. I can tell you what it would have said based on everything that I remember for the following years. And frankly, these master plans aren't referred to the way that the state envisioned master plans, but I don't want to discuss that. So all these subjects actually can fit into the Eidelweiss master plan was the point here.
Okay.
So ponds, Carrie, what do you want to say about ponds?
So what I'd like to see is that our pond parking be only for Eidelweiss owners and their guests.
So
So
beach
that's
beach
not-
parking really,
Beach parking.
beach parking.
So I don't know if you call that privatizing the beaches or just the parking area, but all of the ponds are ours. The third one is not. So people can come, they just can't park there, just like Silver Lake. You could come, but if you're not a Madison resident, you can't park there. So that's a piece of it. And the other piece is we just need, it's besides the road, besides the water, which I know are in the master plan, and I'm not arguing that, the health of our pond is our third biggest asset. And that's why people buy here, is because we have the ponds. And we have to be really mindful of keeping them healthy with our, what are we using on our roads, drainage, silt getting into the pond, bacteria. I know we do testing and we need to continue that so that doesn't go away. The dam, keeping the dam healthy, all of that is part of our, our asset, our third biggest asset, in my opinion.
I agree with you 100%, especially on the parking issue. We did try that a couple of years ago, and unfortunately, there was a little subgroup that stacked the house against us, saying, oh, no, you can't do that. My son comes up, and he'd have to move his car seat from one car to the other to park at the beach, and so the whole thing kind of got, brushed aside. I don't know if you remember that at all.
Many times.
And I do think that we should do that. And each property should have 2 placards, and if the placards get lost, it's $200 to replace it. And if you don't have a placard on your car, we have to please have the Madison police enforce it with whatever fine or towing is allowed. And I think we all know what happens is the police do sometimes like to just give them a warning and a courtesy, please don't park here. Well, those people are gone, and then the next weekend it's another whole group of people. So the ordinances and the fines never really get imposed, whether it's fire pits, fireworks, parking on the streets. So I think if we could encourage the Madison police to truly enforce whatever it is that the voters decide is the right thing to do for Eidelweiss. And I think parking is a big issue. And now that you've put in place this no parking on the street,
I noticed the signs,
yeah,
no
that's
parking, yeah.
new this
That
year.
is, yeah.
Yep.
There still has been parking on the streets. I don't know how we enforce that. Do the police enforce it? Do we call the commissioners and they call it a tow truck? I don't know if there's any process put in place. But
It's-
again, that's a whole separate
It's
discussion.
done through police enforcement.
Okay,
People are allowed, if they have a contractor working at their house, and the
6 a.m. to
contractor
6
needs
p.m.
the driveway during business hours, then the car might be on the street. But those are not the everyday people just parking on the road,
especially
so.
overnight parking.
And part of the reason we actually talked to the police about when this change went in to stop the parking, the roads are very narrow. We all know that. And when somebody's parked on the side of the road or one on either side of the car, you wouldn't be able to get an emergency vehicle there. So you're, you know, and yes, it is gonna probably play right into parking, some type of parking
Ordinances.
ordinance for the beaches, or a change to the beach ordinance to change the parking that said it would have to be by a you know, by a, some type of permit, you know, parking permit.
So we're on the subject of ponds, which got to parking because of the ponds, and then we moved out onto the roads.
Mhm.
One of the things that's happened with this board is we dropped the speed limit everywhere in Eidelweiss to 20 miles an hour. And the chief, who you saw a second ago before the meeting started, was in favor of that and cited the fact that Eidelweiss is a huge walking community. This morning, there was a lot of people walking the roads at 8 o'clock in the morning. They walk the roads all day long, they walk all of the roads.
Mm-hmm.
So the speed limit is 20, and not having cars be able to park on the roads unless they're doing construction at a property, and there's hours that they can be there, but definitely not overnight, because that makes it dangerous for the people walking when there's cars parked on the road also. Ponds, Joe, ponds,
I have a question, does anyone monitor,
John, sorry.
John, it's okay.
John.
The, maybe like the plant life also in the ponds? I've noticed over the last few years, there's like more and more weeds. I don't know if they're invasive or it's just natural to that pond.
It's probably something
Do you-
DES may do every once in a blue moon,
Okay.
but there's nothing active
Just the
within.
water.
Right, all they do is the VLAP testing. How
Okay.
many was that done, 3 times a season?
3 times a season.
3 times a season. Which
Yeah.
is
I've seen
bacteria
them down there
content and
checking
stuff
the
like
water
that.
and stuff.
Yeah.
I just didn't know about the plant life itself.
Historically, the state promotes plant life in the shallow waters. They don't like to see people cutting the leafy weeds out of that, which people that have waterfront property like to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, but a problem may be, is we all know the sign at Boat Ramp Road and other places say, you know, please scrub the bottom of your
Yes.
fishing boats or skiffs or whatever you're using,
That's for
so as not to
milfoil.
bring, right, invasive
Right.
species in. Just one more thing, on parking on the roads and beaches, just so if you are not aware, with the new ordinance, parking ordinance, during a limited period during the summer months, when people use the beaches, we do allow parking down at Porridge Shore Beach on that cul-de-sac at the end, because there is no actual parking lot for that particular beach. So that's one exception, but it's spelled out in the ordinance that people can park there. I think we said from, I don't know, late Memorial Day weekend till
Labor Day.
September 30th, something like that.
Something like that.
There's a large sign there explaining all
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, sign there.
Carrie,
A couple of years ago, the Pea Porridge Pond Preservation Group, which is completely separate from Eidelweiss, had a speaker come in from Conway Lake and talked about invasive plant species. And it was primarily people volunteered to look around Big P for any invasive plants that should not be there. And one of the things that they did say is that you shouldn't be taking out the regular stuff, the lily pads, what we consider weeds. But we could maybe have them back again through the EPOA and get more volunteers on Middle and Little P to just be looking out for, hey, that doesn't seem to be a normal looking plant. I have to say that those algae blooms we used to have that were terrible on Big P have gone down considerably now that the water levels have been better regulated, and they're high in the spring.
I wonder if
Yeah.
Slam could come over.
Yeah.
Slam,
Is your-
I was just
Ah.
gonna mention that, if you don't know, SLAM, which is the Silver Lake Association of Madison, they are actually just in the beginning throes of a watershed management study. I don't know if these ponds are part of the watershed or not, but I know that they're not just studying Silver Lake itself, they're studying the roads and you know, the surrounding areas that impact the lake through the watershed. So it might be a really good time to reach out to SLAM with any concerns that you have, because they have an environmental engineering company actually coming in and surveying lakes and the roads and things, so just.
The P Porch Pond Preservation has already done a watershed study. And that is independently funded. And it's in cooperation with Rock House, because there's so
yeah.
much silt that comes
Sure.
down from Rock House. So, and they've worked with Conway and Madison to actually change some of the roads. And it has made somewhat of a difference, because we have a different, watershed. I don't know if it's a watershed, but we definitely have a different wetland,
I see.
that goes into Big P.
Yeah.
And then Big goes into Middle, which goes into Little, and then flows off. So, they are very active. They're just like a step ahead of SLAM.
Yeah, oh, good, yeah.
This is under the general category of recreation. We had ponds. Anything further on ponds? Recreation?
Now, I
Parking
know
was the
that
big one.
the Eidelweiss property owners put in the playground, the sign, I don't know who did the basketball court, but all of that infrastructure is getting old. And EPOA, we're really making an effort to keep capital monies. Your t-shirts cost a little more, your puller fleece, and all that profit goes into a capital reserve account, because we know that we have to replace things.
We're getting highly reimbursed as market influencers by wearing the
Thank you.
Eidelweiss.
Thank you. How many Instagram followers do you have?
15 to 20,000.
That's right, Mr. President.
But, you know, we're looking into replace that merry-go-round that was broken, and a nice piece of equipment is $4,000. It's gonna take us a long time to raise that money. If the basketball court needs to be repaved, whatever it is that we pay to belong to EPOA, $45 doesn't go very far in the big scheme of things, especially since not all homeowners belong to EPOA. So we have to look at how can we jointly maintain those structures within the village.
That would be warrant articles,
Okay.
if you agree.
Mm-hmm.
Traditionally, the EPOA did everything for the playground and has a sign that says,
Oh, I know.
and then when they, whatever they do, it's the property of the village district. Once it's turned over, once the EPOA
Yeah,
installs it.
I'm aware of that, but how in God's name did they do that? Like, looking at that was a lot of money.
I don't know, did they ever do a fundraising drive specifically for, we need to buy this piece of equipment for the playground and we'd
We're
like to
trying.
raise?
We're gonna
Okay.
try.
I think the swing sets and the older stuff, the really rugged stuff, was originally done by Great Northern before it became the village district. And then the stuff that's more modern and plastic was done one piece at a time over years by the EPOA. It got built up to what it is now. And now everything's more expensive, and which we could talk about, but we're not going to because we're staying on subject here. Recreation, what else?
As for the basketball court that is deeded to Eidelweiss, the EPOA is not responsible or doesn't run the basketball. We have had residents, a particular resident whose family is into basketball. They have voluntarily changed the backboard a couple of times and the nets and things of that nature, but if it came to repaving it, that would be a warrant article
Okay.
as to whether or not the voters wanted their money spent on that.
There are lots of grants too. So if it's the POA or the
All set on ponds and recreation? Any further thoughts on that? No? So then the next thing that was of importance was discussion of the cell towers. That can be general or it can be specific to this week's newspaper headline, which was incorrect. Is it clickbait? The tower's not gonna be in Eidelweiss. And in the body of the story, he does say in the Eidelweiss neighborhood, which can be how far away from Eidelweiss.
So Mark, so does the property abut Eidelweiss?
The property abuts Eidelweiss, yes.
How are they going to access the property to build that tower?
The tax maps and the original Eidelweiss plan has roads laid out on it that were never developed. They're called layouts, and historically they're also referred to as paper roads, meaning
Like
they
River
only
Drive or-
they only appear on paper. They don't. If you're looking at it, you don't see anything that gives you a clue that that's a road.
Okay.
And there's several of those on the original Eidelweiss plan. Our viewpoint is that we don't have jurisdiction over communication towers in the town. And we feel that it is our job as commissioners to protect the assets of the village, which is the roads. And we have a deed that's dated May 15th of 1980, that the village district, which was recently formed within the town of Madison, bought assets from Great Northern, who wanted to get out of the business of maintaining Eidelweiss as a private development.
Okay.
So that's when it became a municipal corporation by New Hampshire law with assets. And unlike all of the town roads and the state roads, which are easements over other people's properties,
Property line comes to the
property lines in
center.
the center of the road, and they ran the road down the middle. The state does not own Route 113, they don't own Route 41, they have the right to maintain highways over it. The town has rights to maintain the town's roads, class 5 roads. The village owns the roads, they're separate properties by deed. So there is a paper road off of Oak Ridge Road at the top before you enter the parking lot area that goes off, that's on the diagrams that the petitioner to the ZBA and the Madison Planning Board have sent in applications, and they've made a preliminary presentation this month, and the ZBA and the Planning Board are continuing their meetings as hearings into this cellular tower. We have sent a copy of the deed from 1980 and a copy of the plan that the deed references that Great Northern had recorded at the Carroll County Registry of Deeds that shows this unnamed class paper road. It's not even a laid out road, it's not even a class 6 road because it was never developed.
No path, nothing.
So we're getting an opinion from the village attorney at the taxpayer's cost as to what the commissioner's rights and obligations are to protecting an asset like that. So that's our viewpoint on it, just the use of that road. And also the use of the expensive class 5 road, Oak Ridge Road, that we spent about $300,000 just updating the first 20 lot, up to number 19, from number 1 to number 19 Oak Ridge Road. The house numbers go up to number 100 at the lodge. So just that first third of the road or less, we just invested $300,000. And how much does a 101-foot monopole weigh, and how do you truck it up to get to this paper road to try to get it into the private 95-acre lot that abuts us, that the private property owner is contracting to let a 101-foot monopole go up there. So they're not only gonna, they're saying they are gonna, they're just developing this road that we own that has no name. They've named it Oak Ridge Road. And we don't know if roads that go off in this direction and then go off in that direction have the same name. They decided that, this
So-
attorney from Rhode Island.
So there's vacant property between our known roads and the edge of this property. And so they're assuming that the paper road is something that they would have access to or that they could create on their own?
I think the words they might use is that the road exists on paper and they're going to develop it. They haven't contacted us at all about whether we approve of any of this. And the planning board isn't questioning it so far.
So but does anybody have the right to just come in and improve a road that doesn't belong to them? I mean, that's the question, right?
The laws in New Hampshire are changing, and this could get into the discussion of the Libertarian affiliation, the Libertarian Party in the state of New Hampshire.
Mhm.
And I've done a lot of research into that. There's tons of information on YouTube that the Libertarian Party has put out themselves. They are changing a lot of the laws in a profound way, such as, come January 1st, you don't have to get your car inspected in New Hampshire anymore.
Right.
That's the Libertarian Party that did that. And we could have
Anti-government.
another meeting about the details of how they did that. It's fascinating how they did that. Two guys did it. They weren't even in the State House. There's a number of libertarians now in the State House. Their goal is to get as many libertarians elected to the New Hampshire State House, and they're doing quite well. They're influencing the Republican Party, which is the majority party in Concord. The reason I'm giving you this background is they're changing the way the towns can do zoning ordinances in detail. They are freeing up, they're making it so that the town of Madison, for example, can't limit one housing unit on a 2-acre lot. That is the minimum lot size in the town of Madison. So I've gone to several steering committee meetings. I think I joined the party late, invited myself, I think, in the rudest of fashions.
You are welcome.
There's been no discussions about how you do a master plan while Concord is changing the laws that you're doing the master plan on. I'd be looking at that, and I think Eidelweiss would be looking at that. Eidelweiss doesn't have this problem because we're already divided into half-acre lots on average, and that was done in the 60s. And they're now called non-conforming lots in Madison because they don't meet the 2-acre minimum, but the grandfather because it was all done. So I just want to point out that the laws are changing in New Hampshire, and whatever we do, whatever the town does, more importantly, may be for naught because the state law changed and rules that out.
But that's what the Eidelweiss is now looking at, though, is what our rights are
To the road.
to the
Yes.
road that we own, and do we have the right to prohibit development of that road that does not belong to a developer?
Let me tell you, the reason I started on the libertarian discussion is they have changed the law regarding Class 6 roads in the entire state. It used to be that the town had a lot of control over whether development could even happen on a Class 6 road. And the law said that anybody that wanted to build on a Class 6 road first had to apply to the planning board of that town. And the planning board decided whether it was premature development or not, and could say before the town issued a building permit that the planning board says no. That's not true anymore. The libertarians changed it that if you have property in a Class 6 road, you no longer have to go apply to the planning board. If you sign the document that says, I realize that this is Class 6 and emergency services aren't gonna be promised to my location on my Class 6 road, and maintenance of the road is not gonna be done by the town, you have to do it. If you get that document registered at the Carroll County Registry of Deeds, now they have to issue a building permit. So there's an example specifically to the issue you're raising of what rights do we have over this thing, this paper road. Is our attorney gonna say that's a Class 6 road and the new state laws apply to it? Or this isn't even a road? We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't
The
know.
legal definition of what a laid out road, a paper road is, when it doesn't exist on the ground at all. And you're gonna help us pay for getting that answer.
We're gonna find out soon, though, hopefully
Is
from our
Attorney
legal
Bolt still
counsel.
the district's attorney?
No,
Oh, okay.
I think Bolt is the planning board attorney,
He is, and for the town of Madison, yes,
the lawyer go round.
yes. Okay. So would there be any way to, even if they develop this road, to give them access to someone else's private property to put up this tower? Would there be any way for the district to limit access to that property to just maintenance of that tower and not, that's, you know what our fear is, obviously, that now that there's a viable road going in, I don't know, how many acres is that parcel?
95.
95 acres of previously inaccessible land now is accessible.
Now, that's not the only paper road that does that to that lot. On the other side of one or two of the houses going down Presidential View before
Okay.
you get to Clausen,
Mhm.
there's another one that's on paper that does the same thing as the one that the tower people want to use to build this tower.
But does Eidelweiss
And if
have
your
to-
answer is, can we, if they're allowed to build a road to the property line, are they not allowed to build their own road continuing it?
True, which if they're allowed to go to the property line in Eidelweiss, obviously we have no control what happens on the other side of the property line. But if they all of a sudden decide to put in a, 45 unit housing development in there, and that access is all through Oak Ridge, can we limit,
My opinion is not. I'm not a lawyer, but I spent a lot of time with Madison planning and zoning, and if
Just
there's
like
a
we
road
can't
that
limit
comes to my
Eidelweiss,
property. Here's the question that can be is that at the hearing, they were claiming they had frontage on this road. The frontage they have is where the road on paper dead ends into the property line. Frontage is usually on the side of the road that passes by your property with how much, do you have 100, it's required you have 100 feet in Madison, or it used to be. I don't know how they're saying they have frontage when the paper road dead ends. It's the width of the road themselves is what they're saying is frontage, I believe. Otherwise, I don't get it at all. It's a lot of questions.
whatever happened with Eben Farm Road? Could the people that bought that, did they ever build a house up there?
It was for an existing house. Oh, there's two examples. There was a house further down on Grisson that they wanted to, that was on Eben Farm Road that backed up to Eidelweiss there. And you may be more familiar with that because that was, if you remember, during
Yep.
your administration term there.
Yeah, and that property owner chose to create his driveway onto Grisson so that he would be able to hook up to the water system and things of that nature, versus the backside of his property, which is Eben Farm.
So he bought an
he's-
Eidelweiss lot,
So he bought a Eidelweiss lot.
but didn't merge them.
He couldn't, that was the problem, he
Yeah.
couldn't, because they were in two different districts. I think the planning
So
board.
that's one of the examples.
Yeah.
The other example is, we just spent, you helped us pay the attorney to give us an opinion on a driveway off of Aspen that goes to an old farmhouse that's on Eben Farm Road, the original Eben Farm
Yep.
house. You can't access it by Eben Farm Road because it's just horrible.
It's overgrown, yeah.
Yes, it's got water problems, they didn't wanna build a bridge. And what we found out that we didn't know is that there was a deed that gave them access over an Eidelweiss reserve area. A lot of land, we have several lots of land that couldn't be developed into housing lots. So Great Northern called them reserves, and it's just green land, and we wondered how, they called it 19A Aspen because it's between 20 and 18 on that side of the road, so they gave it an A. Well, it turns out that there's a deed for that we didn't know about, that Great Northern gave them way back when. So there's two examples in that area of how people are using non-Eidelweiss lots that abut us to gain benefit by using Eidelweiss as an abutter, coming over Eidelweiss property, using our roads to get to their non-Eidelweiss property.
And I guess all the trucks that go through from 113 down to Town Line Road, they're using our roads to gain access.
Yeah.
Otherwise Madison.
That's a,
Road engineers will tell you that one car traveling on a road does a certain amount of damage to the substructure of the road, the gravel that's under the road. And a truck, a full-size truck with full load, is the equivalent of 9,600 cars passing with one pass. So when you see a 10-wheeler with a load of gravel going up Oak Ridge Road, it's doing damage to the base of that road that it would take 9,600 cars traveling on Oak Ridge Road to do for that one pass of the truck. So it costs us for people using our roads, but they're public roads. But for people that are non-abutters to use Eidelweiss roads, and they're not helping to maintain them, to plow them, to ditch them, to do everything we know that costs to have roads that go straight uphill from a 500-foot elevation to a 1,200-foot elevation in less than a mile. Those are expensive roads that we have.
I guess then my question would be that the commissioners are very well aware of the implications of what's going on up there.
We're spending our money on it.
Yes.
Okay,
We-
all right, and that,
We're trying not to spend too much money.
well, I think it's worth spending a lot of money on it.
We even
Especially
talked
legal
about,
off of Oak
we
Ridge.
even talked about, can we get away by asking the Madison attorney?
Yeah,
And we thought we could do both. But we really need someone that's representing our interests.
Yeah, an advocate for us.
So it's worth us beginning to spend some money on it, but we don't wanna get into an emotional cash flow over this.
Yeah.
We're not, I don't think this board is against cellular towers.
no,
We're only looking at it from the perspective
Right.
of that paper road.
yeah,
That's it.
And I agree with you.
We're not gonna fight anybody about communication towers.
No.
Right, but
That's
those who are, opposed to the tower, like they were over toward King Pine, I mean, what's the next ZBA? I think it's November 5th, the next meeting, discussing the whole thing, so that's a good time to go if you have concern over the tower itself.
I think we have 19 minutes
Okay.
left.
Next.
So that was towers. And it covered abutting non-Eidelweiss.
Mhm.
You wanna cover any more on that?
We're all over it.
So then, the last thing that we have on this list is STRs, so we have good timing here.
Okay.
So, you wanna lead that off?
Sure, just kind of as a little update, back in March of 2022, the planning board submitted a warrant article to the voters and it passed. And it basically stated that dwelling units were not allowed to be used for transient occupancy. And the definition of transient in the zoning ordinance is less than 30 days. And it passed. It wasn't a petition warrant article, it was actually written by and presented by the planning board. Since then, a lot of things have happened for short-term rentals that have been in existence prior to that, and there were some rulings at the housing court. A judgment was made. I think several people thought the town should have appealed it, but they didn't, so we've kinda had to let that go. But everything that's been a brand-new short-term rental as of March of 2022 should be restricted by that adopted zoning ordinance from March of 2022. And we went to court, the town went to court and used several examples, one Oak Ridge being the primary one that was never a short-term rental until after March of 2022. And the court has heard the case. It's not like a large debate, it's just basically the two attorneys and a judge saying, okay, here's the ordinance, you agree with it, you disagree with it. The only disagreement that the opposing attorney had, who represents the Mount Washington Valley Responsible Renters Group, blah, blah, he said that the ordinance, the way it was written, was very vague. And it would prevent an owner from using his own house for less than 30 days. Which is, to me, seems like an absurd result, and courts can say if the interpretation that you're using results in an absurd result, then, that's not a valid argument. So we're kinda hoping that the same judge who ruled against us last year would rule in favor of us this year, because he did ask the attorney, what about this new ordinance that came about in 2022? And Matt Johnson, their attorney, said, yes, that's gonna be a little more difficult to defend, because I was able to go to that particular hearing. So, I'm hopeful that the ruling comes in our favor. If it doesn't, I would hope that there'd be pressure from the residents, both in Eidelweiss and outside of Eidelweiss, to put pressure on the Madison selectmen to appeal that decision. I think right now it's kinda, they taking the easy way out. They don't want the controversy. I think some of the selectmen in Madison feel that the town of Madison isn't truly against short-term rentals, it's just this bunch of little rabble-rousers from Eidelweiss. The town of Madison voters did vote to adopt that definition of no transient occupancy. And then the following year, they actually adopted in a very vocal discussion at the town meeting to put $80,000 into a capital reserve fund to help defend those ordinances, primarily short-term rentals, not just that, but a capital reserve fund to provide money for legal costs. So I think that again spoke volumes at the town of Madison, because these things are happening in all these different locations, especially since COVID. I don't know if Eidelweiss can do anything about it. I don't know if the Madison selectmen, because they're the ones that kind of control that, if they can be pressured, or maybe it's just us residents going there and saying, look, we have to get a handle on this somehow. So, again, I'm just curious as to what your.
Well, refresh my memory, wasn't there a homeowner on Lucerne Drive recently who rented his house out?
Mm-hmm.
Took when the town of Madison went after him, he took his case to court.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
He won.
Well,
And
so what
the
happened was,
the homeowner one.
in Eidelweiss, because our definition of what Eidelweiss says it is a residential district, no commercial or business or agricultural activity. And what the judge said was, well, the people in the house for the weekend aren't conducting a business. Even though the owner may be conducting a business, what the people are doing there for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is not a business. So that was his justification for allowing, or for saying that we did not have a case. We were ruled against because we thought the rest of Madison residential doesn't say no businesses specifically, whereas Eidelweiss did. So we thought we had strong language that's been there since 1989, and he ruled against us. And our thought was, well, if I own a restaurant, what are the people in the restaurant doing? Eating dinner? That's not a business. So why is that not okay to put a restaurant in Eidelweiss? What's a hotel? People are sleeping. That's not running. People in a hotel sleeping, they're not running a business. They're doing something they would normally do in their home. But a hotel's a business. So in our mind, it's what the owner of the property is doing, not what the people in the property are doing.
This is just,
So that's why we thought,
Yeah.
even Mr. Epstein, what's his first name? George Epstein was, I think, a little concerned that Madison didn't appeal that decision. Because it seemed like we had a really good argument, and then the selectmen said they didn't want to do it.
now I may be wrong, but everything I've read on it, it seems like the overwhelming public opinion, or the majority, is that, wait a minute, it's my home. I can do what I want with it. Government, stay out of my business.
Okay, well, libertarian thinking, but guess what? Can you open up a motorcycle shop in your house?
Right, no?
Can you,
I know, that's,
have a manufacturing plant and have, 15 cars in your driveway all day long?
no, you can't do that, but.
The the reason for zoning is to put limits on areas, primarily to protect areas from commercial activity. And Eidelweiss it's a residential community on 0.33 acre lots. When you're on a 5 acre lot out in the middle of nowhere, it doesn't impact you at all. But you know how close together we are, and so, anyway, so I guess just, if the master plan, there was some discussion with this master plan that it was somehow going to indicate that the town was open to that kind of activity, that it was good for the town, that it brings money in the town, which it really doesn't. So anyway, I'm just curious as to your thoughts on that. I mean, we won't know this particular judgment on the March 2022 amended ordinance until maybe January, but.
I think the town, well, we could talk about what the Board of Commissioners have as their responsibility and their duties as far as the zoning ordinances, because this is all zoning ordinances.
Mm-hmm.
So we're writing a master plan, our version of the master plan. The planning board has to approve this section of the master plan. So we don't have the right to have it become part of the master plan, even though we're writing it for them. They're the ones that decide what the master plan looks like. So if they're opposed to a statement in our master plan that doesn't work for the town, I'm imagining the town doesn't like to pay for the enforcement. This current 2002 master plan pointed out that Madison didn't have zoning. Eidelweiss had zoning before Madison did.
I did read that, yeah.
And at the time that Madison voted to have zoning, it wasn't a cakewalk. It was a highly debated. There were people adamantly against having any zoning at all. And they still here. They still resent the fact that we have zoning. I know them. The amount of money that's put into zoning enforcement isn't that great in the town of Madison. We don't have a full-time person, we have a part-time person, and I don't believe that person gets benefits from the town. So, I think that person is overloaded with just building permits, and I think the selectmen are also wondering what's gonna happen with existing lawsuits that they're involved with as the town. And there's not much of that $80,000 left. What happens when the $80,000 from that warrant article is gone? Are they gonna be tapping other budgets to pay for the STR lawsuits that are still ongoing? Including that number 1 Oak Ridge. It's still being fought, I believe.
Right, the hearing was August 2nd, and it's the same judge that heard the previous short-term rental cases on people that had already been renting prior to March of 2022. And the other thing that they're saying, and again, I don't want to bore everybody with this, is that the ZBA said, okay, we have a new ordinance, all the pre-existing short-term rentals are now non-conforming use. So they're allowed to continue operating, but they cannot expand the use. So if you have a pig farm, and all of a sudden pig farms are illegal, you can still run your pig farm, but you can't expand the use of the pig farm. If you've got 100 pigs on 50 acres, that's all you're limited to. So that's the logic. So they said, okay, pre-existing short-term rentals can continue, but in a non-expanded way, right? Because the new ordinance says you're not supposed to do it at all, you can still do it, but you can't expand it. But in the spirit of fairness, if you rented 72 days as your maximum number of rentals in a year, we'll give you an additional 15% usage, and you would still be in conformance. So they're fighting that also. They're saying that we shouldn't be able to limit them at all. So there's kind of two different lawsuits going on that were both heard on that same day.
So there can be a statement in our draft of the Eidelweiss master plan, the section that goes into Madison, that says a position on short-term rentals. I don't know if you want to hear the personal opinions of this board, or if we want to write the statement concerning STRs in the draft that we submit to the Madison plan.
Well,
Because it's just a direction, it's
right.
not.
And I think emphasizing, and it does, from what I've read, too, it was a lot of emphasis on maintaining the rural culture and neighborhoods and family and residential dwelling units, and there was a lot of discussion about those types of, and again, the zoning, the master plan is not enforceable, it really is just overall guidance.
Yep.
But I think if we keep the discussion about, if this is a residential community, and people, oh no, it was always meant to be a short-term rental, and if people bought it in Massachusetts and they rented, they didn't rent to strangers for 4 days at a time. That's not what happened in the 80s and the 90s. That's
No.
not how people used their second
The
home.
planning board has even had conversations that Airbnb, internet booking, faceless renters, that the property owner never meets, is different than the way it was done from the 60s through the 90s.
Absolutely,
Is
absolutely.
that Eidelweiss was always, in the current version of the master plan, it says that Eidelweiss has always been a resort community.
Okay.
One of the selectmen that's on TIA's steering committee pointed out that the master plan even says the town of Madison should promote second homes in Madison. Because those people pay taxes but don't put any kind of burden on the school system or not that much on the transfer station. And that,
Well,
that's
the
another
transfer
debate
station,
that can
that's another
happen.
whole, yeah. Well, no, they dump the trash, in the road instead of.
Yeah, I don't wanna open up the trash
Yeah,
can.
so anyway, but if we could just, emphasize the fact that it is a community of second homes, which is true, there's, 300 out of the 500 properties are still second homes. They're not primary residences, so yes, that is just a statement of fact. And, I don't know if there's been much of a shift in that number over the last, 10 years or so.
The current version talks about the shift was already happening when they wrote that version of the master plan, that more and more people were living full-time in Eidelweiss.
Mhm.
But it also is pointing out that there's been 40 more houses built in Eidelweiss since the last version, the updated version of the master plan in 2010.
40, I would have thought it would be more than that.
I think it's more than that too.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to get the most recent version of the Madison tax database that the assessors are changing, or in the process of finalizing. Once I get that, I'll be able to figure out exactly what percentage. We had a conversation, T and I did recently, where I was pointing out that 22% of the tax base is Eidelweiss. So Eidelweiss pays 22% of everything.
Jay always said it was 30%.
No,
Yeah.
Jason Long.
Yeah, anyway.
It's 22%, and I wanna see if it's changed with the new assessments.
Speaking of new assessments, quick question. So our property value, not the house, but the property, every property in Eidelweiss is being assessed, is it
What?
65,000?
Water frontage,
Yes, for
Water access.
having ownership, so
Of
to
the
speak,
beaches.
of the beaches.
so
How can that possibly be true?
listen to this theory. The assessors are looking at market value, and they're looking at market statistics,
Mhm.
sales.
Mhm.
And they notice that comparable houses in Eidelweiss sell for more dollars
Mhm.
than the same house in Madison,
Mhm.
comparatively speaking.
Yeah, a 3-bedroom ranch with no garage, you're right,
So-
Eidelweiss is higher.
So they're using algorithms to decide what the assessed value is gonna be that you're gonna get your tax bill based on.
Mhm.
And they have to have a weighted factor
Mhm.
as to why the exact same looking house in Eidelweiss is selling for more than a house on anywhere else in Madison.
Mhm.
So what they deduced was it's because it's Eidelweiss. Well, what makes it Eidelweiss? You even started this by saying it's the ponds
ponds.
that make
Yeah.
Eidelweiss Eidelweiss. It's also the fact that it's already set up as a resort community, and that, I think, is part of the market value. I believe that realtors I just saw it this week, there's realtors that are advertising houses for sale in Rock House Mountain, which used to be a part of Eidelweiss, but couldn't be anymore because it's in Conway. They're advertising that if you buy this house, you have access to multiple beaches on Pea Porridge Ponds, without saying that we're telling you you have access to the Eidelweiss beaches as long as Kerry doesn't get her away and you can't park there anymore. Which is why people have been discussing that for 14 years in Eidelweiss.
At least.
14. 14 years ago, it was on the warrant and got voted down
Mhm.
for reasons that it was not enforceable, which,
And again, we discussed that.
so,
And again, we talked to the guy at Avatar, and he basically said the same thing. He said, we had to figure out a way to sneak that value in.
that's what they did. They used a weighted value on that kind of falls in line with what people believe, is that it's,
But how can you be taxed on something that you have no vested interest in?
you own them. You're about
I
to
mean-
change the nature of them by voting on it, possibly. Where it's only Eidelweiss residents that can use our parking lots, which are deeded to us.
Which is not the ponds necessarily, but the parking.
Right. Yeah, all we can do is restrict the
Right,
parking.
right, yeah.
Because that's
It's even
Eidelweiss
debatable
property.
whether you can restrict people from going on the beaches.
See, I don't think you can. I think they can walk across the beach
Right,
because you can't limit access to water, and that's a state
Well,
law.
you already quoted a person that you agree may not give you good information.
That is true.
So
Uh-huh.
that's in the area of folklore, and there's been a recent discussion quoting the English law that came down as to access to water rights that is now part of New Hampshire law. And it has to be determined by a court, each case of whether you can access state ponds over private property. And it's not clear cut that Eidelweiss cannot restrict people from going on our beaches that we pay money to maintain. Put picnic tables, we put the rafts in the water, we
Outhouses, yeah.
spend money on them every year. And other people, I've heard that Conway actually had a rec bus pull up and unloaded a bunch of kids to use our beaches. And they didn't park, they pulled away, and it's like, okay, so people understand that we have nice beaches. There are websites that are telling people we have nice beaches, use them. And it's like, it costs us. And the saddest thing is when a taxpayer can't get into the parking lot and there's no space on the beach and they're paying for it.
Yeah.
And the reason they can't is there's people that don't live in Eidelweiss that have got there that day first.
Yeah.
So, who knows when we're gonna vote to do it?
Okay, is it up for consideration for 2026?
It's on the list of potential warrant articles for 2026, yes. To restrict parking and put some type of, I know there was a discussion earlier or a comment earlier about 2 per house. I think we originally were talking about 1 per house. But yes, it is on the list. So we obviously aren't there yet as far as putting the warrant together or any of that and whether or not it's
And if
gonna
it gets voted down,
survive,
it's
but
voted
it
down.
could be
At
there.
least we have it framed, you know, as to what the language should look
Right.
like.
As far as you can go.
Right.
This is so fascinating that we were able to hold 10,000 people here past 11 o'clock.
Woohoo!
Gated community.
I know, put gate up. Okay,
We need to make ours a gated community, solve every one of these problems.
That was discussed. There was a time that one person actually put a gate up on Eidelweiss Drive.
really? Is it you?
No?
Running it by himself with a rope.
And
Which end?
that was a problem for the school buses that get to the Allard Hill section of Madison to get the kids to school. They use Eidelweiss Drive both ways. And there was a gate up on Eidelweiss Drive. And that gate's not there. It didn't stay up very long, but the cement footing for the gate is still there as a historical artifact. Want to keep talking?
11 o'clock.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this on a Saturday. All right,
So we'll make a motion to adjourn this hearing.
Sure,
That's a second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
3-0. Thank you very much. At 11:04.
Pretty much right on schedule.